Hi, this is Greg, and this is the last section of the texturing tutorial. What we're going to be doing here is texturing a console in the sci-fi scene. It's going to be, again, different to the other two, but all it's doing is combining all the ideas, techniques kind of shown you so far, and then adding a bit more in this one. The texturing you'll fly through, hopefully, and all I'm going to show you now is a bit of different preparation. This is quite a simple object to texture and to UV map, but what's different is the others were tiled and a UV map planar object, where this is now going to be a whole unwrapped in Max. I'll just show you a whiz around the viewport of it. If I can set up my... There we go. We can rotate around the object so far. So as you can see, it's like a simple boxed object. Bottom face is deleted because we don't need it. Back, sides, front, top. I'll show you what I've done in the UV map and then explain how you can do the same or use it for other things. If we have a look here, we've got the front section of the object here, the side, and the back. Notice a couple of things. One, I have detached the front face of this console and put it on a separate mesh. This is because I want to be able to take this console texture into other programs and have a bigger texture space to apply some effects to it. If you look as well, I've mapped both sides, but I've only allowed one side on the UV map. This is because I've mirrored it to save some space. Another thing I need to do, which I haven't done yet, excuse me. Yep, I've also detached the top of this, or I'm going to detach the top of this texture here and put it elsewhere because it's not in this map at the moment. So if I quickly show you what this object looks like when I've textured it. I apply the textures, there we go. I'll render this out quickly for you. So, yep, there you go. So, we've got, if I scroll it, we've got two mirrored sides, the back, which isn't lit because of the way the light is in the scene. The same applies to the top, really. You're never going to see that, so it doesn't matter as much as importance, but I've textured it anyway. So, all I've done is, if I go back into this UV map modifier, I've done several planar modifiers. I've selected the faces. So if I go into the front viewport, I'll show you this quickly, put ignore back face on, and I've selected the front of the face. And then you may do this differently depending on what version of Max or 3D packages. Basically, I've applied planar map, scaled it, then I've done the planar map for both of the sides. Planar. Click on the planner again, and also once the planner map's been done, I've flipped one of them over and then welded them together. And the flip tools in Max are up at the top here, and then you can press Ctrl and T to weld vertices. When you've finished playing with your modifier, you'll notice something different in Max 8, and that is usually you'll be able to move anything around. But if you've got a modifier down on the map parameters here on the right, you can't do anything. So you have to click out of it if you want to adjust where you want these faces or scaling and stuff like that. So it's a bit different, the workflow, to previous packages. Just a warning, because I know that one got me out to start with. Also, you'll notice that you can move all sorts now, rather than faces. You can also select it just like the viewport, which is a bit different to how it's been done in the past. So basically what I've said I've got here, I've mapped it so there's three sides we can paint on technically. A face which has been detached so we can have a higher texture on it. One thing you need to know is if you're planning to normal map something like this, then you've got to be really careful with what you're mirroring. At the moment this probably wouldn't work due to how normal maps light and stuff like that. So if you want to apply a normal map or anything like that, be careful, read up on what exactly your limitations are and how you're going to approach the UV map. But for something simple like this, just a standard textured object, that's fine. Okay, so there we go. That's basically what we're going to aim for, and I can now show you some of the techniques in the texture. If I switch to Photoshop, right? And the left is where we start from, and like the others, right is where we're going to end up, hopefully for the small console. I started from the same source texture as the blast door. I'll try to keep some sort of theme going on throughout the texture set, and then I've built it up into small objects. So what I normally do is I'll reference a couple of other materials I might be able to use. So if you see, there's this shiny metal JPEG here, which I've used for the bars and some of the overlays in the scene. You can have hundreds of these textures depending on your library. Then I've looked at all kinds of kind of sci-fi junk or Geiger sort of theme for just an idea of what I might get on this sci-fi material. And then I've just split it up into sections. That's what I normally do with my workflow. Is I'll break it right down, brainstorm some ideas of what I want in the texture rather than just going paint straight away. So if I look at some of these layers, I can explain what I've done and what you can do as well. First layer, this is really quick, so ignore the horrible shadows, but basically all I've done is I've got dodge burn and sketched out some rough shadows and ideas of where all these are going to fall on. So if I ignore that a minute, first thing I did was, if you look on the image on the right, I've gone and made a little control panel here. That is basically the combination of some of the techniques from the past two tutorials. So if I switch it on, all I've got here is a square. If I zoom in and show you, which I will now show you how to do that. It's simple drag on the original concrete texture, copy and paste onto a new layer, so we can call this panel 1, and then I've gone into the blending options like in the past. So I'll open this up a minute, bevel and emboss, then I've set the lighting to how I want it, the depth, the type of anti-alias or the contour, okay. Then also, if you look at it, I've put some scratches and wear on there. I've done that with dodge and burn, just quickly, nice and easy. And something really simple. Obviously, you can have the time to paint in your artistic cracks and detail features and stuff like that, but that's basically how I've made the panel. Also, it's the same technique I've used for the panel here, where the switches and also all the metal plates along the middle ridge there. Okay, next on there I've got these small ruts, which I've used for the slider on the panel. These are done also to a similar way in the past tutorial. So if I show you these, I'll make a new layer called ruts. Right, then I need to change my brush back. So I've got quite a hard edge brush, and I now draw the area I want. This sliding rut in. So I'll just change my brush to a darker colour. Good thing to do, which I forgot to do here, is always check what your brush is set on before you start painting. I start with hard light. That's not really what I want. So once I've painted your ruts, go to your bevel and emboss. It's the same way as your screws really. Get an inner bevel, get something that you want. You might have to flip the lighting over on this one, your depth, something like that. And the last thing on here is I've got this red panel, this red slider rather, so I've put the slider on there, and all I've simply done here is I've just got a red kind of colour and painted a bar in. painted a bar in over the ruts that are showing, and then applied another modifier on that. Obviously, if you've got the time, you can go in there and paint the shadows to where you want it and customize it to however you want. You know, it all depends on what kind of style you want the texture to look like, etc. So yeah, that's the kind of general idea to how you may want to do this. So yeah, another thing I've done as well, so as you can see, the one on the left is far too bright. If you press Ctrl U, you can bring up this hue saturation. You can take the saturation out of that colour, adjust the lightness there, so it starts to match the other one. You can also pick the values as well with the picker tool. So yeah, that's how you make one of the simple sliders that's in the texture. And if I switch that layer back on as well, we've got the shadows. So that's how I made the small panel. So if I just merge all those down. Right, next thing is the text, made exactly the same way as in Tutorial 2. If you haven't seen that, check that out now for the text, because I'm not going to waste time going over that one again. Okay, the next big difference in this one is the kind of exhaust fan heat thing on the side here. This is done by a couple of layers again. It's just a simple glow orange colour. You can paint this to however you want, flames, electricity kind of thing. Then followed by a simple overlay shape, which I've later put more metal effects and stuff on. So these have all been done by the circle select tool, or elliptical select tool rather, where I've just simply grabbed a space. I can copy part of the original texture. So here we go. Let's bring that up here. Template. And if I hide that a minute so I can see what I'm doing, yeah, there we go. So, and then other bits on this, all I've done is just simply, you might have to fiddle with the selection tool until you get it where you want it, is I've then cut out part of the shape using the select tool here. So yeah, if you hold shift you can get those straight lines I was on about in Tutorial 2. So you can do this with more time, obviously, just to show you. Right, you can delete. There you go. There's the general kind of cross shape. You can make this as complicated as you want. Multi-layers and rings, all sorts of stuff going on. Then again, with the blend options, all paint the shadows and highlights in however you want them. Set them up over the top. One of the things I've done with the glowing orange colour here, this is just a simple fill. All I've done is made the select tool again. There, I just grab a colour, just painted the colour, and simply quickly paint in some yellows, some oranges, some blues, reds, get some sort of fiery effect going on there till you get what you want. I've also added an outer glow just to give some more ambience on the surrounding materials. So if I switch these back on, so you can now see the kind of glow coming from there. Also, I've done something else later on which I'll soon show you. If you look on the finished texture, I've later gone in, selected the orangey kind of colour used in this exhaust here, and using hard light and a new layer, I've painted in some kind of ambient glows on the surrounding metal and plates and pipes and stuff. It just adds that extra bit of believability into your texture. And up here I've got a panel, made in the same way as the small one. Copied a selection from the beneath texture, painted in, start to get some highlights and some cracks. Ignore the shadows on there; they've just done in speed. Okay. Then I've got bolts all around the texture. These are done in the same way as Tutorial 1. Basically, an elliptical tool, select part of the original texture, copy onto a new layer, then add the blend options on. Right, the next bit on my layer palette here is the grids. Right, these are done using the selection tools. Again, just a bit more of a complex shape. You can select them to however you want them. Either make them symmetrical or random. So as you can see, I'm just dragging out a strange shape here for you so you can understand. I'll show you something in a minute to help you with this. Okay, so if I just put the blend options on and show you that. Okay, so that's just one example of a random shape you can get for these kind of grids. What's important about this texture, just like the last, is the guides. Luckily, I was actually quite spot on with the kind of borders here. You can see this is the front. There's the join down there for the side, then the back, obviously. One thing you can always check in Max, if you're confused about the UV map, because sometimes these things can have thousands of lines on them, is you can go into Map, go into Max, go back into your modifier, your unwrapped modifier, and you can apply the console PSD onto your UV map. So all I did then was reset the texture list, pick the texture, then there's this box up here, just like the material editor, show the map. Right, then you can see exactly what part of the texture is going where, just in case you're unsure about painting on seams and stuff like that. You have to be careful to allow the texture to flow. Okay, right. So once I've got my my kind of panel here, all I've done to it then is I've added a few more shadows, dodge and burn. I've added a bit more of colour variation with it and get a bit more blues, reds and yellows into the metal to make it look a bit more realistic compared to the concrete kind of sludge I have here. Once that's done, I've added these kind of grooves in there, and these are done the same way as the ridges in the panel. I've just simply painted a darker, deeper material on there. Use the bevel and emboss tool to get this kind of ruts in there, so I shall get rid of that now. Next thing is this circular panel, done exactly the same way. Circular selection, copied and paste it. If I drag that back up to the top, quickly, so yeah. Okay, and fill that in. All I'm doing here is just to show you quickly how to make these ruts again. Blending. As you can see, they've got kind of a circular elliptical end to these, where this one's quite square. To do that, if I just turn these effects off a minute, you can do it a couple of ways. You can either add a kind of like cap to the end of your texture with using the circular tool, so nothing like this, and then you copy mirror it over here using the selection, so select it, copy, paste, transform, flip, there you go, something like that. Merge it back down if I just copy and then clear, paste, there you go. That's a similar kind of thing. There's quite a lot of unneeded operations in there really. If you wanted to do it a different way, you can just use this shape here, rounded rectangle tool. There's a lot of good shapes in there you can use. Simply once you've drawn it, you have to rasterize it. It's like the text that in tutor 2, rasterize the layer, then you can paste the layer styles there. It's a simple way. It's maybe more easier than simply drawing out what you want. Okay, so if I now get out of here, all I've done now is I've turned on another layer, I've copied that circular vent grid there and put it on the top, and like the other layer, there's a lot of kind of speckly grime bits I've painted on there, and this is done in multiply just to darken it a bit. Then I've added the panels, just like the one at the bottom. I've copied and selected a rectangular selection onto a new layer, then beveled and embossed it and painted some just random cracks in it, and then duplicated the order. You might want to change paint different patterns in each one just to make it a bit more random rather than duplicating the same thing. And if I show you this, this is orange ambience here, which if you can see just on the bottom left by the panel, when I turn it on, you can start to see some more of the orange on the following grid around there, and also just up at the top above the exhaust. That's what I was on about earlier. It's hard light with the low opacity. The next is just some trims. This is done the same way as the squares, copy and paste, bevel embossed, and then we've put some scratches on there and some dirt and stuff. Okay, this is another layer here, the dirt layer, which all I've done is overlay. Basically all I'm doing for the kind of grime here at the moment, just simply, is with some sort of speckled brush or random brush, is getting a lot of colours, painting it different. If I put it on normal there, I start to see there's some greens, oranges, purples, just anything to kind of bring up some sort of wear and tear notion sort of thing. The next step I've done is added the barrier, and like the one on the blast door with the trim, it's simple, like overlay blends, and then the darker colour on. I've done that with the lasso tool. I've just dragged out selections and filled them in different colours, which gives you that. Right, this one, the next layer, is the bar layer, which you can see on the old texture, which I've used here, there, and at the bottom, and I've also copied it up at the top for later on. This is done, I've sampled it from another texture, from this texture here, this shiny metal. All I've managed to do is drag and select, copy a section out of it, paste it in here, and then all I've done really is I've duplicated the layer, moved it to the side. Also watch when you do this, because you get like a different seam, so you may have to flip or rotate your copied information. Merged it down, put it to the side, done the same until you've filled up the area of the image that you want. Okay, so if I do that quickly, there you go. Then I've scaled down the bar. In this case I've just painted on some quick highlights and shadows, so if I do that again, I'll use the shift and click to draw the straight line, so you can see the start to come out a bit now, and I've done it the same again at the bottom. You can paint this in yourself with a bit more time, and also use bevel and emboss if you want to do it that way. Just always watch your settings on Dodge and Burn that you haven't got the exposure really high, because otherwise you will make your image a bit over contrasted. So okay, we're starting to get there now. So we've kind of got this glow. Right, there we go. Also what I've done, if you look at the image of the right, there's 3 larger chunk sections. So what I've had to do, if you look on this layer, just around here, here and here, I've painted in some shadows. So if I unhide some of these, start to see one of those bar overlays where I've just put those orange guidelines. There you go. And then the shadows coordinate into that. That's just been done again. Do it with the Dodge and Burn slightly. Obviously you'll get more time to be precise on where you want these to go. So for now I'm just doing this really fast for you. So once you've done that, then again all I've done is I've pasted in that bit of that selection from that JPEG, scale it to what I want, and start to work in some shadows and highlights on this new bit here. And once you're happy with it, it'll start to blend in eventually. Use your eraser tool if you want to make it more curved, or if you want to make something more square, or whatever you want to add to this part of the image, and yeah, that's your general idea. If I move that, oh, moving the wrong one now. Right, there we go. So I turn this panel off. There you go. That's the kind of idea I've got for the image below. But then obviously, all I've done is duplicated this 3 times. Then you can change your shadows and also, you know, cracks and dents and whatever you want for each time you have a go at this. So get rid of these guidelines as well. So yeah, that's the first bar. Then I've made a second bar, which is simply just a duplication of the original, if you can see it down at the bottom. Right, the next step I've done is I've taken the bar and I've used it as some small pipes right up at the top, which is one of the last things I've done in the image. I'll just switch on the shadow layer now. Okay, right. To make these bars, all I've done is I've got one of the old bars, so in this case I'm using bar 2 here because it's a merged down layer where the others are all separate at the moment. I'll duplicate it. Right, now there's two ways to do what I'm about to do. I want to rotate it 90 degrees so I can get it vertical instead of horizontal. You can use the Control T to go to transform, and then drag around holding Shift to get an angle snap. But when you do that, sometimes it will blur your selection, but in this case it's okay. If I just set it back using the history on here. Another way, if you go to Edit, Transform and Rotate, there we go. Then all I've done from this position is I've taken some parts of the images using my marquee tool. I've made bits smaller, bits bigger, and until I've got something I wanted. So at the moment I'm just dragging some of this selection using the marquee tool, which is M, and V, which is move. Then I've gone to the eraser and simply try to make it a curved ending there. I haven't got my Wacom on me at the moment, so I'm drawing this with the mouse. Okay. Once you've done that, then you can add your other bits of your pipe. Don't matter how far you want it to go. So obviously you're going to have to change your shadows and everything now that you're starting to move this material around a bit. I'll zoom out. Okay, move the rest of this up here. Just deleting the bits at the bottom which I don't need. If I drag this back down, then I can duplicate it and flip vertical, sorry, going crazy today. And then I've merged it down and changed the size a bit. Obviously you can do this a lot more accurate than I can. Depending on when you're playing with the resize, sometimes you might want to add a sharpen, but obviously just be careful on how much you put on it in case it becomes too much. Then duplicate it again, and I've resized it by about 30%. You can change this up. If you don't feel comfortable by using the selection tools with the transform, you can enter the values up here. So those of you accustomed to Maya or something might be a bit more comfortable doing it that way. Okay, so there we go, there's 2 bars there. Right, so once I've finished all my little bits of the texture, I'm ready to flatten it again. So I can then merge it all, size it down to whatever I want, in this case 256. I've then done the sharpen and then saved it and imported it into Max. Okay.